A lot of times you'll see different people on the show. Some are in the young professional range, some are more seasoned professionals, as I like to say. But I'm really intentional about catering the stuff I'm doing to make sure it appeals to those young professionals, especially in STEM.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. First off, if you're only listening to this episode, I want you to know that you could also watch it on YouTube. Regardless if you're listening or watching the show, bonus points for doing both. Really appreciate your support. Couple other things I want to talk about that I need to talk about more. The first thing is the Be Incredible Starter Pack. It includes a leadership masterclass, budget template, resume template, and interview guide so you can be a pro at interviewing. That is available completely for free. Go to IncrediPaul.org/start, pick it up, put your email in, send you a link to it. The other thing is if you like the hat or the shirt or any of the things you've seen me wear that say Be IncrediPaul, I am not an influencer, I'm a leader. Any of that is IncrediPaul merch. I don't talk about it often, but I need to do more talking about it. You can pick it up by going to IncrediPaul.org/merch to pick it up. Doing that, whether it's the starter pack or especially with the merch, is a way to support me. Everything I do with the podcast, I do completely for free. There's other stuff I'm able to do and charge for, but the podcast itself is completely for free. So if you want to help support everything I do, pick up some merch today. So today I want to talk about something that I always talk about, which is leadership, but talk about a framework for leadership. The framework I have for it is listening, learning, and then leading, which I believe I talked about, but I want to share some stories around that as well, trying to work on my storytelling. And really the first time I even heard of this concept of listening, learning, and leading was when I was working as a CI manager in St. Louis, continuous improvement manager. And the framework works really well. And let's focus on the first part, the listening part. And I have a talk I do on this, but listening to understand, not just listening to respond. How many times are we in conversations and you just feel someone waiting until you get done talking in order for them to respond? As this was a specific situation, I was out on the floor trying to talk about different continuous improvement initiatives we were doing, some stuff on the digital side. We were talking about different things. And one of the guys pulled me over to the side and said, I really appreciate your leadership. And I was like, what do you mean by that? I hadn't been there too long at that point. Again, it had been a couple of months, but he told me this framework about listening, learning, and leadership. He said that I did a really good job when I first came in, a month of just spending time with them on the floor, listening, learning everything before trying to lead and change anything. And I think that's something really critical to know as leaders and leadership being influence. So sometimes you don't have to have a leadership title. I talk about that on the podcast all the time. You don't have to have a leadership title. Understanding leadership as influence, but making sure that we are doing adequate listening. 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We need to listen more than we speak. It can be easier said than done, and it is a continuous process. We need to make sure that we don't get so caught up in what we want to say that we don't hear others. And that's something I always have to be mindful of. So like with the solo episodes, obviously there's more of me talking, you get to hear from me. But for the longest time with the podcast, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do solo episodes at all because I wasn't sure if I had something impactful or not to say, which sounds a little bit ridiculous when you think about the fact of the time, the hours I put in learning leadership, being a Maxwell Leadership certified speaker and coach. There's a lot of stuff to share, But then I wondered, was I the right person to share it? But the more and more I listen to people, is that a lot of people, I'm able to share stuff in a way that's digestible and down to earth. And that resonates to a lot of people. I've also chosen to focus specifically on young professionals. So a lot of times you'll see different people on the show. Some are in the young professional range, some are more seasoned professionals, as I like to say. But I'm really intentional about catering the stuff I'm doing to make sure it appeals to those young professionals, especially in STEM. So I'll talk a lot about introversion. I'll talk about all the stuff I had growing up being shy, because I think it's really critical to share about those things that can often hold us back. So that's just one story as a continuous improvement manager in St. Louis. The other story was when I was as a packaging engineer, and this is really a story of a really good leader, a leader that wanted to make sure that I was able to progress and grow where I wanted to go, even quicker than what I realized. So I was in a regional role, traveling extensively. At some point, I can dive deeper into I think I've just kind of shared all the different stuff I worked at, like all the different things I've done. But as a regional package engineer, was working on a lot of different projects, putting in new line extensions and all those things that go along with the capital side and getting up to speed on the technical side. But as someone whose background is in chemical engineering, I expressed some interest in wanting to go the process engineering route because I wanted to do something more closely aligned to my background. So thinking back, what I was doing as a packaging engineer was really a process packaging engineer because I was more focused on the equipment, how it worked, making sure all those things. But regardless, back then I had that thought. I voiced it to one of the directors at the time who was over both of the departments when I was in, and the one on the process engineering side. And what ended up happening was I was able to find out about a role, apply for the role, and get a role after just a year being in that packaging engineering role. So I'll say it's not that typical to move that quickly. I think it also happened because it was in his broader group, and I was still able to help with some of the packaging stuff even after I moved over to the process engineering side. But I think that was a good example of him listening and learning from me so that he could lead me effectively. He saw that I had a clear vision of where I wanted to go. And when the opportunity came, he presented it to me. I went through the process. I was able to get the role. And that in itself, that opportunity led to where I am right now, working and with R&D in process engineering. I had a stint as a CI manager in between. So over those years, multiple companies, I've worked for a lot of different companies. Some of that has to do with just having a clear path to where I wanted to go. I've known that I wanted to get experience and work in research and development as an engineer in the corporate setting, mainly because in the past, in undergrad, I worked in undergraduate research, not related to food, but I love food. So I was like, I got to do it. And I've done manufacturing internships in food. It was from that point I wanted to marry the two. So now I have an opportunity to do both has been great. But then also thinking about what do I want to do long term? If I want to stay within this space, do I want to increase more breadth or depth, all those things. So that's just like a side note into me of some of the things I think about. But as a leader, it's really important that you take the time to listen to your people. And it takes time. Like it takes effort. And some people don't necessarily know what they want. And that's okay too. But for the people who do know what they want, I do this in different organizations I've led, whether it was the initial nonprofit I started, Inspire, or with Nala STEM, or even with IncrediPaul. I've been building out a team more and more as I'm being more intentional in this space, is taking the time to listen so I can learn and then effectively lead. Also realizing that leadership is not something that has to be complicated. Sometimes it goes without saying. You can notice opportunities like it was in this director and those opportunity presented towards me. And then I was able to step into it. Other times it's just making sure that you're checking in with people on their projects and how things are going. So this is pretty straightforward, but I talked about the listening part, about the leading part. The learning part is a process as well. Obviously, you're going to learn from them, but you also want to learn about your leadership. How do you effectively lead? And understanding that with leading, you cannot lead every person the same way. We are human. We have fingerprints that are different. Everyone is a little bit different than others. Even if we have the same Myers-Briggs or same strengths, we don't always apply them the same way. And that's why leadership is so hard. Leadership is hard because we cannot treat everyone the same way. Said it before, you try to treat everyone the same way. Some people are going to feel overbearing. They're going to feel like you're micromanaging them. Other people are going to feel like you're ignoring them. Understanding you as a leader really set the culture for your organization, and you really mirror what the company is. So if you are an entrepreneur or someone pursuing that, it's pretty clear to see that however I'm portraying, that's how people are going to see the business or the company. But even on the individual level, if you are a manager within a Fortune 500 or billion-dollar corporation, the culture you set for your team should mirror what the culture is in the company. And sometimes it might not be reflective of what you're even getting from your leader, but you as a leader, it is your responsibility as a leader to make sure you're removing barriers, listening to your people well, learning from them so that you can effectively lead them. So this is a shorter episode. I actually got one that was truly shorter. I didn't preface it this time because I didn't want to assume anything. But think about, am I listening well? Am I learning well? Am I leading well? How do you do those things? Keep watching the show, keep listening to the show, and connecting with people, looking for resources, and you too can truly be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.